In August 2010, a tabloid reporter posing as a corrupt betting agent filmed a cricket player's agent counting out £150,000 in cash in a London hotel room. Then he told the reporter exactly when it would happen. Not who would win the match, but the precise ball, in the precise over, that would go wrong. 3 days later, at Lord's Cricket Ground, it happened exactly as predicted, live on television, in front of 40,000 people who had no idea what they were watching. August 2010. Pakistan is touring England for a 4-match test series and arrives at Lord's, the most famous ground in cricket, for the 4th test. The team is captained by Salman Butt, alongside 2 of the most talented young fast bowlers in the world, the experienced Mohammad Asif and an 18-year-old prodigy named Mohammad Amir. What none of the spectators know is that this particular match has already been partly scripted. Not the result, just 3 specific deliveries. Spot fixing exists because of the scale of illegal cricket betting across South Asia. An underground market some investigators estimate moves billions of dollars a year, almost entirely outside any regulator's reach. Match fixing, rigging who actually wins, is comparatively easy to spot because it usually requires a whole team to cooperate and produces an obviously strange result. A single no ball buried inside 6 hours of play is nearly invisible unless someone tells you exactly when to look. Weeks earlier, an undercover reporter for a British tabloid had posed as a representative of a Far East betting syndicate and approached Mazhar Majid, a sports agent who represented several Pakistani players. Majid didn't just take the bait, he offered to prove his access was real by naming the exact moments in the upcoming Lord's Test when his players would deliberately bowl a no ball. The reporter behind the sting, Mazhar Mahmood, had built a career on this exact kind of undercover investigation, adopting a wealthy Middle Eastern businessman persona so often that British tabloids nicknamed him the fake sheikh. He spent weeks cultivating Majid's trust before ever mentioning money, building enough credibility that Majid volunteered the no-ball scheme himself, unprompted, to prove he could deliver. This is what's called spot fixing, and it's different from fixing an entire match. Nobody's asking Pakistan to lose. Instead, bettors around the world can wager on spot outcomes within a match, whether a specific delivery will be a no ball, for instance. And if you know the answer in advance, you can make enormous safe profits without ever affecting who actually wins. Majid told the undercover reporter which overs would contain the no balls and named a price, £150,000. On the 4th day of the test, Mohammad Amir bowled a blatant no ball on the 3rd ball of his very first over. Later in the match, Mohammad Asif bowled another at the over Majid had specified. Both deliveries were so obviously overstepped that commentators noticed live on air, joking about it without knowing what they'd actually just witnessed. 2 days later, the News of the World published its full investigation, transcripts, and hidden camera footage, under the headline, Court Match Fixing Scandal. On the broadcast, commentators genuinely laughed off Amir's no ball as a fluke of a young bowler overstriding under pressure, exactly the kind of innocent explanation the fix depended on. Investigators later widened their scope beyond just the Lord's Test, examining whether earlier deliveries in the series, including one during the preceding Oval Test, may have been arranged the same way, though formal charges ultimately centered on the 2 Lord's no balls. IACC Chief Executive Harun Logat calls it one of the darkest days for the sport, and the board fast-tracks a tribunal rather than letting the case drag through cricket's normal disciplinary calendar. Amir is the only one of the 3 to plead guilty early and cooperate with investigators from the start, a decision that does nothing to reduce his sporting ban, but noticeably shapes how both the tribunal and the public eventually come to see him. This is what's called spot fixing, and it's different from fixing an entire match. Nobody is asking Pakistan to lose. Instead, bettors around the world can wager on spot outcomes within a match, whether a specific delivery will be a no ball, for instance. And if you know the answer in advance, you can make enormous safe profits without ever affecting who actually wins. But none of this was coming completely out of nowhere. Pakistan cricket had already weathered ball tampering allegations, previous captain bans, and years of whispered match-fixing rumours going back to the 1990s, when a judicial inquiry led by Justice Malik Qayyum had recommended bans for several senior players without ever fully ending the suspicion. By 2010, another fixing scandal wasn't a shock to Pakistani fans so much as a confirmation of what many had already assumed for years. In February 2011, the ICC's anti-corruption tribunal hands down its sporting sanctions. Salman Butt is banned for 10 years, with 5 suspended. Mohammad Asif gets 7 years, 2 suspended. Mohammad Amir, just 18 at the time of the offense, receives a full 5-year ban with no suspension. But the sporting punishment is only the first half of the story. Sentencing the men at Southwark Crown Court, Mr. Justice Cook describes corruption in cricket as being like a cancer, warning that unless it's tackled, the sport itself risks losing public trust entirely. It's an unusually blunt public rebuke from a judge more accustomed to fraud and conspiracy cases than sports scandals, and it becomes one of the most quoted lines to come out of the entire affair. Because the sting had been run in England, British prosecutors pursue a criminal case as well. In November 2011, at Southwark Crown Court, Butt, Asif and their agent Majid are found guilty of conspiracy to cheat at gambling and conspiracy to accept corrupt payments. Amir, who had pleaded guilty earlier, is convicted alongside them. The sentences follow. Salman Butt receives 30 months in prison. Mohammad Asif gets 12 months. Their agent, Mazhar Majid, receives 32 months. And Mohammad Amir, the youngest of the group, sentenced to serve his 6 months in a young offender institution rather than adult prison, becomes the most sympathetic figure in a scandal with very little sympathy to go around. Amir later gives a tearful public apology, describing the shame of dragging his family and his country's name through the scandal at 18 years old, and says he was afraid to refuse senior teammates who pressured him into it. Whether that fear excuses the conviction remains one of the more debated points among cricket fans to this day. Amir was a teenager, recruited into professional cricket young, and by his own account pressured by senior teammates into bowling those 2 deliveries. That didn't erase the conviction, but it shaped how the cricket world eventually treated his return, very differently from how it treated Butt and Asif. Amir's ban expired in 2015, and after a rehabilitation process with the Pakistan Cricket Board, he returned to international cricket in 2016. The only one of the 3 players to play for Pakistan again. Butt and Asif's careers effectively ended. The scandal forced the ICC to significantly expand its anti-corruption unit, and spot fixing, once an obscure betting market loophole, became one of the most closely policed threats in professional cricket. Spot fixing cases keep surfacing in the years that follow, including a wave of arrests tied to domestic T20 leagues in 2018. Confirming the practice never fully disappeared, just moved to lower profile matches with less scrutiny. Amir's own career stayed controversial to the end. He retired from international cricket in 2020, citing what he called mistreatment by teammates and selectors who, in his account, never fully let the scandal go. The full case file, every sentence, every appeal, and where all 3 players ended up, is linked below. If you want to know which scandal we're opening next, subscribe. There's a new file every Tuesday and Friday.